Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kilowatt, a podcast about electric vehicles, renewable energy, autonomous driving, and much, much more. My name is Bodhi, and I am your host. And on today's episode, we are going to talk about news. So let's go ahead and just get into it. First up, we have a couple of stories that were recommended by folks in our community. So let's start off with Joseph's recommendation. Honda is making a small, actually a very tiny van in Japan called the N-Van. It was first introduced in 2008 as a three-cylinder petrol version, but now it's getting an EV version. Now, this vehicle is not going to be like spectacular in terms of specs. It'll seat 4. It'll have 124 miles of range or 200 kilometers, and it's expected to start right around $15,500 US, which is pretty good. This vehicle sits in the K car segment in Japan, which is their smallest car category. It qualifies for lower taxes and lower insurance, so it's a really affordable segment for the Japanese car industry. The K cars were first introduced after World War II because after the war, Japanese folks didn't have a lot of money, and it was a way to use manufacturing to prop up the economy and build jobs, and then also provide an affordable car to the people of Japan. So it's actually a cool segment. There's a lot of people who are into K cars, and if you're curious, it's KEI cars. All right, let's move on to Jamie's recommendations. It's not just Americans who are concerned about how EVs will affect the electrical grid. Some in the UK have argued that EVs will overrun the grid and induce perpetual blackouts. Now, is this true? I don't know, but one article claimed it won't take an enemy power to put us all in the dark, just energy customers doing normal things on a normal winter's evening. This seems a bit extreme. This is not really something I'm concerned about, but I do think it's an area that we should be proactive in, and it should be studied and addressed. Because while I don't agree with the extreme views, I know here in the United States, at least, we have a fragile-ish infrastructure when it comes to the electrical grid. So yeah, that'd be something that I would like, not only here, but in other countries, for us to address to make sure that that doesn't happen. But let's move on. According to ChargersUK, at the end of June, there were 930,000 EV chargers in the UK, and that number blew me away. And then I read that it included homes and businesses, which was honestly most of them. So there are currently about 65,000 public chargers in the UK. So out of 930,000 total EV chargers in the UK, there are 65,000 public chargers, and a bit more than 5,000 of those chargers were installed in Q2 2024. So ramping up. And that concludes our community suggestions. I got to find a better name for that segment. If you can think of one, just send me an email, Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com, because I would like to give everybody an opportunity to submit articles if they would like. I'm not always going to use them. And honestly, it doesn't mean that I don't like them. It just might mean that, one, the article is way over my head and I don't understand, or two, I've already got the show written and there's no place for it. I guess there's a third one where it just doesn't fit into the overall theme to the show, because when I can, I do try to theme these shows or to write them in a way that kind of tells a story or a way that makes sense so it flows. Now, I just talked about chargers in the UK. Now I'm going to talk about chargers in the US. That's how I'm transitioning. Back in the US, 704 new DC fast charging stations were switched on in Q2 2024. That doesn't mean that's the amount of new chargers that were turned on in Q2 2024. That's the amount of stations. There's typically a number of chargers at each station. So I don't know what that exact number was. But the bigger news in US charging is that in 8 years, there will be more public EV chargers, charging locations than there are gas stations. 8 years is a long time, so I'm not going to hold my breath that this will be the case, but I'll report back to you in 8 years and see if that was actually true. NIO is holding their Innovation Day on July 27th, which at the time of this recording is tomorrow. They're expected to show off their new operating system for their vehicles, SkyOS, and they may show off their new phone. If you didn't know, NIO makes an Android phone. Their first one was released last year, and they've committed to releasing a new phone every year after that, similar to how all phone companies do things nowadays. But yeah, pretty cool. If anything comes out of that, we'll talk about that next week. Ford is extending the time that EV owners have to order a Tesla NACS adapter for free. So this is a CCS2 to NACS adapter. You now have until the end of August 31st. So you have until August 31st, 2024. If you want to get a free adapter that will allow you to charge on the supercharger network. After that, you're going to have to pay 230 smackers for it. GM and SAIC, which is a Chinese automotive company, they are partnering on full self-driving technology in specifically China. The fruits of the new joint venture were shown off on July 16th. The system is called Navigation on Pilot, which is really close to Navigate on Autopilot. But Navigate on Pilot, it'll be level 2 plus. By the way, level 2 plus is not a thing. That's a marketing term. It's just level 2. But SAIC has already received regulatory approval to test in China, so this is kind of a big deal. And GM is currently not loved with their self-driving efforts here in the U.S., so it doesn't make sense that they need to diversify out of here and test in other places. Now, I don't think that's because they drug a pedestrian in San Francisco. I don't think that's the reason why they're doing this, but I like to imagine that this is why they're doing this, but I'm sure it's not. Let's move on here. Rivian recently released a software update to improve charging times. So Kyle Connor of the Out of Spec podcast and YouTube channels, and he does a lot of stuff, plugged his new R1S, I think it was a demo R1S, into a DC fast charger at 0%. So this is not something that a lot of people are going to do, but Kyle is known for pushing the limits in terms of EVs and performance. He knows what he's doing. It took 1 hour and 15 minutes to charge from 0% to 100%. Now that was before the update. After the update, Kyle ran the same test, and the charging time was reduced by about 15%, or 15 minutes, excuse me. 0 to 100% is definitely not what most people are going to be doing, but I do think this is interesting and sounds like, the typical, let's say 5 to 80% charge that you're going to do on a DC fast charger, maybe 15 to 80%, that should go much faster now. Tesla is suing Rivian over stolen trade secrets. And to be clear, I don't think Rivian is actually stealing trade secrets. Tesla is saying employees who left Tesla to go to Rivian took trade secrets with them and shared them with Rivian. I highly doubt that RJ Scaringe would allow this to happen. And I think, and I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure RJ has already said that they have mechanisms in place that would not allow anyone to upload any trade secrets into Rivian's internal database. But a judge did find that there was enough evidence to continue with the lawsuit. So if this lawsuit moves forward, we'll typically see reports from internal documents from both companies. And this could be very interesting for us as people who pay attention to this kind of thing. So I don't want Rivian or Tesla to waste their money, but I'd like to find out what's doing behind the scenes. It's always fun to find out when Apple's suing somebody or somebody's suing Apple, and we get those news stories about what happened behind the scenes and who said what. I think this would be interesting. All right, everybody, that is our EV news. Before we get to our Tesla news, I just want to remind you, you can go to patreon.com/kilowatt and sign up and be a patron for as little as $1. All the ads go away. And if you use the Patreon RSS feed, all the ads go away. And you support the show directly. I don't use any of the Patreon money to pay bills. All the Patreon money goes right back into the show. So go to patreon.com/kilowatt or supportkilowatt.com. All right, let's move on to the Tesla news. The Tesla supercharger diner and drive-in that's being built in Los Angeles is coming along. It's coming along. There was a small issue with power lines that was keeping the second movie screen from going up, but now they've removed the power lines, and this should allow construction to begin on that second screen. If you're not familiar with this, Elon said that he wanted to build a place for like Tesla people to go and hang out and charge. And it's going to be a multi-level diner where you can actually sit and watch the TV or the screens from inside the diner. You'll be able to watch them from inside your car. There'll be people with roller skates. It's supposed to be a fun vibe. And honestly, there's a drone video that's linked in the article that I put in the show notes. So it's also linked in the show notes. It does look like it's going to be a fun place. Not as big as I thought it would be, but it does look like it's going to be a fun place. You can watch the drone video if you're interested in that. Cybertruck may launch in Canada soon. There was just one little issue that needed to be resolved. Tesla had to get an exemption on the fly-by-wire steering system because it didn't meet the minimum steering angle requirements. Now, I thought that the Tesla Cybertruck had great tight turning. So correct me if I'm wrong on this. I would imagine it's something very specific with that fly-by-wire, steer-by-wire system. But anyway, an exemption was granted, so it sounds like the Tesla Cybertruck will be able to start testing in Canada and then also launch in Canada by the end of 2024. So that's pretty cool. Elon has called to end all subsidies for all industries. Now, Elon has said this before, and I don't even necessarily disagree with him in principle. My typical feeling on subsidies is we don't need to be subsidizing established multi-billion-dollar companies and increasing their profits. We shouldn't be doing that. However, I do have a caveat to that. I do think subsidies are important when it comes to emerging technologies or technology that is aging out, but still runs much of the backbone of some industries. You know, there's a lot of old technology out there and not a lot of people around who still know how to use it or program for it. I do think subsidies in that regard is important. Going back to the electrical grid thing that we talked about. And I'm okay with individual citizens getting tax credits because it's a tax credit. It's your money. They're just letting you keep more of your money, and tax credits on appliances, renewable energy, more efficient EVs, or more efficient ACs, air conditioners, or heating systems, HVAC systems, and EVs. I think that's okay. But I don't necessarily disagree with Elon's call to end subsidies. Here's the problem. Despite Elon's continuous calls to end subsidies, Tesla has and continues to have or continues to benefit from subsidies from countries all over the world, not just here in the US. And whether that's a direct subsidy to Tesla or that's a subsidy to the person buying a Tesla, they benefit from that. So is this an issue? And my question to you genuinely is, does Elon really want to end subsidies for altruistic reasons, even if they're altruistic just in his head? Or does he want to pull the ladder up behind Tesla? You can email me, Bodie, BODIE at 918digital.com. I'm not going to speculate, but I would encourage you to speculate. All right, final story here. Elon went on X and he said, hey, here's a poll. What do you think? Should Tesla invest $5 billion into xAI, yes or no? And there was an overwhelmingly large percentage of people who said yes. Like 989,000 people voted. A vast majority of them said yes. And the reason why is because that is Elon's fan page. And of course, most of those people are going to say yes, but they don't represent shareholders. Some of them might be shareholders, but they don't really represent shareholders. But my question is, what benefit does this give Tesla? Because Tesla already has an AI team that is currently working on AI efforts to solve full self-driving. And in addition to that, they're using AI to power their Optimus humanoid robot that they're building. But I don't know what specifically Tesla gets in this scenario from xAI. I don't know what the benefit is. I don't know where they would see a $5 billion plus benefit for Tesla. And to further add to my confusion about this, on Tuesday, the 23rd, at Tesla's Q2 2024 earnings call, Elon specifically said that the xAI developers don't want to work on full self-driving efforts. They want to work on advanced general intelligence efforts. And that's the whole reason why he started xAI. Let's go ahead and play the clip.
With regard to xAI, there are people that only want to work on AGI. So what I was finding was that when trying to recruit people to Tesla, they were only interested in working on AGI, not the big problems, and they want to do a startup. So it was a case of either they go to a startup and I'm involved, or they do a startup and I'm not involved. Those are the two choices. This wasn't they would come to Tesla. They were not going to come to Tesla under any circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, I would even add that AI is a broad spectrum, and there are a lot of things which we are focused on full self-driving as Tesla and also Optimus. But there's the other spectrum of AI which we're not working on. And that's the kind of work which other companies are trying to do, in this case, xAI. So you have to keep that in mind, that it's a broad spectrum. It's not just one specific thing.
Yeah, and once again, I want to just repeat myself here. I tried to recruit them to Tesla, including to say, you can work on AGI if you want, and they refused. Only then was xAI created.
So it sounds like the xAI developers don't want to be a part of Tesla. I don't know why this would benefit them in any way, shape, or form, other than it's $5 billion, and that's an impressive amount of money. But then what are they going to do? Work on infotainment type stuff? Are they going to work on a voice assistant for Tesla? Tesla doesn't need to invest $5 billion for them to do that. What are your thoughts? You can email me, Bodie, BODIE, at 918digital.com. You can also find me on X at 918digital. I'm not going to do any Twitter polls or X polls, but they're on there. All right. We have a little bit of time left, so let me just kind of jump into some things that I've been thinking about. I'd kind of like to do an event that has probably at least initially reach out to Patreon supporters first, but I'd kind of like to do an event where we watch something together and 4 or 5 folks from the community are on and we can discuss it. It would probably have to be after the event, and then we would just discuss it as I played it on Riverside so that we could all watch it together and stop when we needed to discuss. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you would be interested in being part of? Is that something you'd be interested in listening to? It may even be that we have so many people that we would have to book people in shifts. I don't know how exactly that would work, but I can't have a ton of people on because it would be a forever show. But in terms of being on or listening, what are your thoughts on that? And then what was the other thing? Oh, I have a new podcast, the Beyond the Post podcast. We are putting out new episodes. We have Lamar Wilson is the first 2 episodes. Great interview with Lamar on just how to be a successful creator and how to set boundaries. Lamar is great. If you don't know who Lamar Wilson is, it's Lamarr Wilson. Search him out. He is a really nice guy. And then we have this last episode was all on mics. So if you're looking for a mic or you want to learn more about mics, Rob and I talk about that. And then on July 31st, our own Allison Sheridan, she's going to be on July 31st and August 7th. And we're going to talk to Allison about community, building community, because Allison has a great community, and also the importance of accessibility when we're creating content, which I need to improve on a lot. It's this season 2 of Beyond the Post is, we got a lot of good stuff. So there are links in the show notes for you to check them out. And yeah, that is it from me. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. It is hot and miserable here. I spent all day in my garage working on a project for the house from 7 in the morning until 3 in the afternoon. And I think the high today was like 114. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. So please cry for me, Argentina. And thanks everybody for listening. I will talk to you on Tuesday, where we're going to cover General Motors Q2 2024 earnings call.